She showed up in a sundress and wedge heels, waving a clipboard like it was a weapon and screaming that I was stealing water from the community. I was on my own land, my own well, my own peace, until Karen decided my backyard was her personal reservoir. By the time she brought in a backhoe and tried to host a town hall on my ranch, I knew I was fighting a neighbor. I was fighting a self-appointed HOA with a Pinterest printer. They say peace is priceless, but in Windstone Valley, it costs roughly the same as a deep-drilled private well and a good pair of boots. My name is Brennan Cole. I'm 43, ex-oilfield engineer turned quiet ranch guy. I bought 28 acres out here in the Colorado foothills to escape the noise, not invite new kinds of it. It's just me, 2 rescue dogs named Duke and Bandit, 4 horses, and a beat-up old porch swing that's seen more sunsets than gossip. I grow alfalfa, run my own power from solar, and drink coffee so strong it might legally qualify as a pesticide. Life was simple, until the day she arrived. Heels first. Here Blackwell introduced herself by marching up to my fence in a flowy pastel dress, wedge heels sinking into gravel like they were fighting for their lives. She carried a faux leather binder, a protein shake, and the unmistakable confidence of someone who'd only ever owned land through Sims. "Hello, I'm the Water Resource Chairwoman of Silvercrest Estates," she announced through her oversized sunglasses. I blinked. "I'm sorry, the what?" She smiled. "We're the HOA adjacent to your property. Lovely place, by the way. Just a minor issue regarding shared aquifer rights." I set down my wrench and wiped my hands. "Ma'am, this is a private well," I drilled. "It's 140 feet deep and not connected to your subdivision." Her smile twitched. "Well, that may be, but we believe water under the land is a shared natural resource, and several homes would benefit greatly from." Collaborators stared for a beat. So would several cacti. Still not happening. I thought that would be the end of it. It usually is. People don't tend to push further when you're standing with your arms crossed next to a no trespassing sign and a dog named Bandit growling low by your boot. But Karen wasn't just any person. She was a kind of woman who saw no as a prelude, not a period. For the next week, she drove by my gate twice daily, glaring through her tinted SUV windows. Then the flyers started, rolled up HOA notices encouraging water efficiency, mysteriously landing in my mailbox. Then came the hose. I noticed it one morning while feeding the horses. A bright green garden hose threading through the brush, sneaking beneath my southern fence like a viper in polyester camo. I followed it. It ran the full stretch of my property line and disappeared under Karen's back deck. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I just turned around, walked calmly to the spigot it was attached to, an old secondary line I hadn't used in years, and shut it off. Then I cut the hose, capped the line, and left the severed piece on her front step with a sticky note that read, "Not your pipe, not your water." The next morning, she was back at the fence. Same dress, same shoes, twice the volume. "You vandalized my property," she shrieked. "That hose cost $22.99. I sipped my coffee. "You stole my water." "It was public flow," she snapped. "You have no right. You had no permission," I said. "That's not theft. That's plumbing." Her jaw dropped. She stormed off, yelling something about legal action, water crimes, and frogs. I didn't know it yet, but that hose? It was just the start. After the great hose incident, I did what any man with a suspicion and a decent internet connection would do. I Googled the Silvercrest HOA. No tax ID, no county registration, not even a P.O. box. What I did find was a public Facebook group with 17 members, 4 of whom had the same last name as Karen, and a cover photo of a stock image pond labeled Future Wetland Revitalization Site. The page was filled with posts like, "Please vote on community mulch tone," and reminder, HOA dues support hydration equity. The kicker? Their president and water chairwoman were both listed as Karen Blackwell. The treasure was her cat, not a metaphor, a literal tabby named Muffin. HOA, my foot. This wasn't governance, it was delusion with Canva graphics. But that doesn't stop Karen from escalating. One afternoon, my mailbox was stuffed with glossy flyers bearing her logo. Silvercrest HOA, Master Planner, protecting water for all in Comic Sans, no less. The flyer claimed I was hoarding a disproportionate amount of underground water accused me of willfully endangering the regional drought balance, and urged neighbors to donate $25.00 toward emergency water mitigation efforts. Translation, Karen was passing a hat around to sue me, using money she guilted out of the community. I later found out she had raised $200, 0 cents, most of it from her own Venmo accounts. She even set up a QR code on one of the fence posts that linked to a payment page titled Water Justice Now. I would have laughed if it weren't glued on with epoxy. I kept my cool until I found a second hose. This one was camouflaged with brown spray paint and pine needles, an amateur attempt at stealth irrigation. It ran from the old wellhead near my workshop to the very edge of Karen's backyard flower bed. She'd hidden the connection under a lawn gnome that, I swear, was giving me the finger. I followed the line in silence, heart thudding, not out of anger, but sheer disbelief. She wasn't just ignoring my boundaries, she was scaling them like a determined raccoon with a Pinterest board. That night, I locked down the property. I sealed the valve, installed motion lights, and ordered a 24/7 trail cam setup with infrared, because apparently HOA now stood for hoses on arrival. Then came the crowbar. At 7:12 the next morning, the motion alert pinged my phone. I rolled over, checked the feet, nearly spit out my coffee. There she was, Karen Blackwell, in yoga pants, a Patagonia fleece, and white Crocs, prying at my well meter box like it owed her rent. She had a flashlight in one hand and a laminated document in the other, waving it like a search warrant issued by the Ministry of Delusion. I zoomed in on the footage. The document was titled Emergency Aquifer Access Order issued by the People's Board of Water Rights. I couldn't even make that up. My dogs barked. I grabbed my boots. It was time to meet Crushilla at the fence. Again, I didn't confront her right away. I let the camera speak first. That evening, after feeding the horses and giving Duke a flea bath he didn't appreciate, I uploaded the crowbar footage to the Silvercrest HOA Facebook group. No caption. Just the raw 42-second clip of Karen in full athleisure regalia, grunting while trying to wedge open a private well meter like it was a piñata full of water rights. Her laminated manifesto flapped in the wind, her Crocs squeaked on gravel, and at one point she paused to shout into the void, "This is for the future of amphibians." I didn't add music or filters, didn't need to. The silence of the morning and the steady clink-clink of crowbar on metal was comedy enough. Within an hour, the post had 27 reactions and 13 comments, all some variation of, "Wait, is this real?" And "Why is she dressed like she's going camping in a Whole Foods?" Karen naturally did not take it well. By noon the next day, she was posted up in front of my gate with a ring light, a folding chair, and a sign that read, "Water for all, no more greed." She recorded a tearful monologue while dramatically waving her access order and accused me of hoarding natural resources, violating senior citizen wellness codes, and, my personal favorite, endangering local frog ecosystems due to well-level disruption. I don't know what shocked me more, the sheer absurdity of her argument or the fact that someone was filming her holding a stuffed plushie while crying into a reusable metal straw. The video hit TikTok within hours. One commenter said, "This is giving suburban Les Mis, but like water." Another just wrote, "Ma'am, it's a well, not a water park." By midweek, I received an official-looking letter dropped into my mailbox with no return address. It was from the Silvercrest Infrastructure Committee, demanding that I adjust well output to match neighborhood occupancy ratios. The letter cited something called the Fair Flow for All Doctrine and featured a logo that looked suspiciously like the Starbucks mermaid wearing a hard hat. It stated in bold Comic Sans that I had 72 hours to install a splitter and distribute water equitably to all impacted parcels or risk formal community arbitration. I laughed so hard I snorted coffee onto the page. It was the first cease and desist I'd ever received with clip art. I responded the next morning, printed a letter of my own, nice and formal with actual legal language. Attached were photos of my deed, the well permit, and just for good measure, a screenshot of Karen mid-crowbar with a timestamp circled in red. At the bottom, I added a note, "Try again," after Photoshop. I folded the packet, slipped it into a manila envelope, and had it delivered via registered mail. I knew she'd sign for it. People like Karen always love the illusion of authority. What I didn't expect was the flyer retaliation. 2 days later, the entire neighborhood was hit with black and white flyers taped to mailboxes and fences. Private wells are not above morality, they read. Brandon Cole is holding this community hostage, one drop at a time. She had gone full propaganda mode. There was even a blurry screenshot of my horses drinking water under the caption, "Unfair livestock privilege." I didn't know whether to sue her or hire her as a failed PR intern. All I knew was this wasn't over. Not even close. I woke up to the sound of diesel. Not trucks on the highway or tractors in the distance. No, this was closer. Angry, mechanical, on my lawn kind of diesel. I threw on boots, half-buttoned my flannel, and stepped outside to the sight of a full-sized backhoe crawling across my southern field like it was building a moat around Disneyland. The operator wore a neon vest and noise-canceling headphones. And there, perched beside him like a low-budget general, was Karen clipboard in one hand, a latte in the other, waving her arms like she was orchestrating Beethoven in a construction zone. I blinked twice. Nope, still there. "Hey," I shouted, stomping toward the fence line. "What in the tractor pulling hell do you think you're doing?" The backhoe halted with a mechanical hiss. The operator cut the engine, looked over his shoulder. "You Brandon Cole?" "Unfortunately," I said, "this is my property. You're trespassing." He looked at Karen. She stepped forward in wedge boots again, because of course, and held up a laminated map. "This area," she said smugly, "has been reclassified under the Provisional Silvercrest Resource Expansion Initiative. It's marked for shared water infrastructure." I snatched the map. It was a Google Earth printout with the HOA logo stickered on in the corner and a hand-drawn blue highlighter line tracing what I assumed was meant to be pipeline potential. It wasn't even straight. "In this," I asked, pointing to the other document, "a receipt from Walmart for a garden hose?" "That's your contribution to community irrigation," she said with a straight face. I called the sheriff. By the time Deputy Hale showed up, the trench was already 3 feet deep and snaking dangerously close to my old barn's power line. Karen greeted him with, "Thank God, arrest him for obstruction." Hale ignored her and walked the perimeter with me. "You didn't authorize this?" he asked. "Not unless I filed for community delusion excavation," I muttered. Hale sighed and walked back toward Karen. "Ma'am, you're digging on private land. You got no permit, no easement rights, and this," he held up the map, "is not legally binding." Karen flared like a sprinkler in August. "This is an environmental protest. He's hoarding water, endangering regional biodiversity, and undermining collective stewardship." I watched Hale mentally process that sentence like he just tasted spoiled milk. Then the trench sparked. Just as the backhoe resumed digging, it scoop-clipped an old PVC conduit. A loud pop echoed across the pasture, followed by a thin wisp of smoke rising like the ghost of my patience. "Shut it down," I barked. The operator jumped out of the cab swearing. Karen screamed like someone had lit her Pinterest board on fire. The sheriff grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, we've got exposed wires in minor Arkin at Windstone and Alder Ridge. Send fire just in case." As the smoke curled up from the dirt and Karen kept yelling about frog habitats and her HOA insurance policy, I stood there with arms folded and whispered, "You wanted a well? Congratulations. You just hit the power line for it." 3 days after the trench fire incident, I found a folded flyer zip-tied to my front gate like it was delivering news from a wartime front. The headline read in bold, underlined, and tragically italicized, "Comic Sans, community hearing on shared resources, hosted at Brandon Cole's property." Apparently, Karen invited every resident of Silvercrest to my ranch that Saturday morning to discuss urgent neighborhood water equity. I stared at it for a long time, reread the words "mandatory attendance strongly encouraged," and then laughed so hard Duke ran over to check if I was choking. But I didn't tear it up. No, I kept it, because if Karen wanted a public hearing on my land, she was about to get one, but not the way she expected. That week, I mowed a section of the southern pasture, set up borrowed folding chairs, and dragged out my old projection screen from the garage. But behind the polite hospitality, I installed 2 solar-powered floodlights, wired my security system to record, and queued up a very specific clip on a laptop connected to the projector. You see, 2 nights before the trench stunt, Karen had been caught on cam scaling my fence at 2:03 a.m. and wearing a hoodie, wielding a spoon and whispering, "I know it's here somewhere," while digging near the spigot. It was the most HOA Golem behavior I'd ever seen, and I couldn't wait to premiere it. Saturday morning arrived with a passive-aggressive breeze. Cars lined the gravel road. Dozens of neighbors shuffled into my field, many holding coffee, some visibly confused. Karen arrived last, of course, in a white pantsuit, oversized sun hat, and a wireless headset mic like she was about to pitch water filters on QVC. Her brother/fake lawyer Brian trailed behind with a briefcase and an expression that screamed, "Please!" Karen stepped forward. "Thank you all for being here," she said into her mic, voice reverberating off my barn like a TED Talk filmed on a goat farm. "We are gathered to address the unjust monopolization of natural resources by Mr. Brandon Cole." I raised a hand. "Mind if I respond?" She gestured dismissively. "You'll have your moment." "Great," I said. And with that, I clicked play. The projector flared to life behind her, lighting up the screen with crystal clear footage of Karen climbing my fence, flashlight in mouth, spoon in hand, muttering about underground water like she was panning for gold. Audible gasps rippled through the crowd. I didn't stop there. I switched to a slideshow, my property deed, water drilling permit, legal boundary map, and a notarized letter from my attorney declaring the HOA legally non-existent. When I turned back around, Karen was frozen, mic dangling, eyes twitching. Then she snapped. "You're manipulating the narrative," she screamed, lunging toward the laptop. "You think you can humiliate me?" She slapped the keyboard, yanked the power cord, and in her fury, kicked the surge protector clean off the table. Sparks flew. A loud pop cracked through the air. Smoke puffed from the back of the laptop. Karen shrieked and stumbled back, flailing like she'd just set herself on fire. She hadn't, just lightly singed her pantsuit and ego. Deputy Hale, already standing near the fence, calmly stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop, drop, and get in the cruiser." He cuffed her as she wailed, "This is oppression. I am the HOA." Someone in the back whispered, "Not anymore." I thought the smoke from the public hearing would be the last puff of drama I'd see for a while. Karen had been carted off in cuffs, the projector was fried, and the neighbors had left with more respect for legal land boundaries than they'd probably had all year. Peace, I assumed, had returned to Windstone Valley. That assumption lasted exactly 3 days, until I received a certified letter from the State Department of Natural Resources. It was thick, official, and smelled faintly of bureaucratic nonsense. Inside was a notice of pending review regarding a petition to reallocate private groundwater for community use. And there it was, my name, Brandon Cole, listed as co-sponsor of an application from the United Water Stewardship Council of Silvercrest. I blinked. Then I laughed, then a blink again. Because attached to the letter was a spreadsheet detailing a proposed shared water framework, claiming I had agreed to contribute 27% of my private well output to the subdivision for hydration equity. There were fake signatures, forged well diagrams, and a grainy black and white headshot of me, clearly pulled from my LinkedIn profile in 2013. The audacity was impressive. The stupidity was Olympic level. I called my lawyer, forwarded everything, then drove straight to the sheriff's office and filed a formal complaint for forgery, fraud, and impersonation. Meanwhile, my buddy Cliff from the county clerk's office started digging. Within 48 hours, he confirmed the documents had been filed under Karen's name and co-signed by one Brian T. Blackwell Esquith, KK, her brother, KK, the guy who once printed a business card that said constitutional consultant. Turns out Brian had been disbarred in 2 states and was under investigation in a 3rd for impersonating legal counsel. He'd submitted multiple fake applications to state agencies, including one for a drought relief grant based on joint usage of my ranch's water system. I nearly choked when I saw that they'd claimed I installed a public fountain for humanitarian cooling purposes. It was my horse trough. They photoshopped the horses out. I bundled every forged document, every clip, every signature discrepancy, and sent it straight to the district attorney. Within a week, a state judge issued a warrant. Karen was arrested again, this time at her own home, still clutching a clipboard filled with color-coded plans for Phase 2 water reallocation. They said she tried to claim executive immunity as a sovereign neighborhood officer. They gotta laugh. The DA charged her with multiple counts, filing false claims, fraud, attempted misappropriation of state funds, and impersonating a government entity. Brian was named as co-conspirator and taken into custody the same afternoon. Karen, wearing a scarf that said "Water is a human right" in rhinestones, gave one last soundbite as she was loaded into the squad car. "The water belongs to the people. I watched from my porch, sipping from a mug that read, 'Not today, OA.'" Not as the cruiser disappeared down the gravel road. Duke wagged his tail. The air felt lighter, but I knew better. When it came to Karen, there was always another clipboard somewhere, waiting to catch fire. I figured once Karen and Brian were behind bars, the chaos would finally dry up. Turns out, all that drama had just been the trickle before the flood. 2 weeks after the second arrest, Cliff called me from the county recorder's office, his voice somewhere between disbelief and pure comedy. "Bran," he said, "you might want to sit down." I didn't. "Remember those HOA flyers she used to hand out? The ones with your name on them?" "Yeah." She wasn't just stapling those to mailboxes. She filed them with the county as part of a public utility proposal. Way. Filed? Filed. Claimed you were the property management partner, said you approved neighborhood fees for water maintenance. She even opened a bank account under the name Cole Community Services. I sat down. Detectives traced the money trail. Turns out Karen had collected nearly $1,800.00 over 6 months in what she called drought mitigation dues, telling neighbors it was to fund shared piping and hydrant upkeep. The entire thing was a shell. She'd rerouted funds through a dummy Venmo account and used them to buy lawn decor, gas cards, and an inflatable backyard fountain shaped like Poseidon holding a ladle. But the worst part? She signed off every payment slip with my name. I was livid, not because of the money, though that was plenty shady, but because she was building an empire of lies on my land and my reputation. And she almost pulled it off. The deeper the state dug, the weirder it got. Police recovered a binder labeled Silvercrest Phase 2 from Karen's garage. Inside, color-coded maps of my ranch, the neighboring fields, and even some parcels 2 streets down, each one marked with notes like high takeover potential, weak fence, or owner rarely home. My name was at the top of the list, circled in red, underlined twice. They had plans to push fake HOA regulations, file liens based on fake infractions, and slowly claim land by defaulting it under their fake charter. It wasn't just water. It was a hostile HOA-style land grab. The courts moved fast. Brian was convicted of fraudulent notary he'd forged official stamps on several fake deeds and contracts. Karen, meanwhile, faced 7 felony charges, including impersonation, wire fraud, false representation to state authorities, and conspiracy to commit property seizure. She pled not guilty. The judge almost laughed. Sentencing was set for the fall. The HOA was officially dissolved, and the Silvercrest Leadership Committee page disappeared overnight. Poof, like it had been exiled to the shadow realm of suburban schemes. And then something wild happened. People apologized. Like genuinely. I came home one afternoon to find a handmade card taped to my gate. "Sorry, we believed her. We were scared of being fined for gnomes." Another day, a couple left fresh eggs and a note. "We thought you were the bad guy. Turns out you were just the only sane one here. But the most surprising thing? Bricks. Literal bricks started showing up, one by one, placed gently at the corner of my driveway. Some were painted. One had "Boundaries Matter" scrawled across it in Sharpie. Another just said "Respect." A tiny monument was forming, unspoken, humble, defiant. I didn't ask for it. I didn't stop it either. Maybe a brick says more than 1,000 words, especially after someone tried to steal your land with clip art and crowbars. A month after the last court hearing, I finally took down the last trail camera, not because I stopped caring, but because I finally could. The tension that had coiled around the ranch for months had started to ease. The neighbors weren't peeking through fences anymore. The cops hadn't shown up in weeks. And most importantly, no one had tried to siphon water from my land under cover of night with a garden hose and a legal pamphlet printed in landscape mode. Peace had returned, and this time it felt earned. But I didn't just walk away from everything. I kept 5 bricks, authentic Silvercrest drama bricks. the same kind that once encircled Karen's SUV, the same kind that now appeared symbolically in front yards across the neighborhood. I stacked them neatly by the fence line, right next to a new granite plaque I'd commissioned, smooth and understated, etched in block letters, "This water is mine." Apparently, poetic justice travels fast online. A few weeks later, a mid-sized YouTube channel called Civil Standpoints reached out. They'd seen the footage of the projector incident, the flaming clipboard, and my makeshift hearing tent. "Would you be open to a feature?" they asked. "We're doing a series on fighting petty power with peaceful persistence." I said, "Sure." They showed up with drones, GoPros, and a host named Deshaun in vans and a denim jacket that somehow survived Arizona dust. The video dropped under the title, "How to Fight an HOA with Humor and Hydraulics," and it exploded. Last I checked, it had over 2 million views, a meme compilation, and a TikTok sound remix of Karen yelling, "I am the HOA," auto-tuned, of course. People started emailing me from Montana, from Michigan, from a guy in Florida who once got fined for parking a kayak too confidently. They shared their own HOA horror stories, battles with fake boards, nonsense fines, and neighborhood overlords with too much time and too little oversight. I realized something. It wasn't just me. This wasn't a fluke. It was part of a bigger pattern. People standing up to systems built on fear, noise, and clipboard. That's when I launched my own channel. Nothing fancy, just me, my porch, and a cup of coffee. I called it Well, Well, Well. First episode, the day a woman tried to annex my ranch with a spoon. Comments flooded in, subscriptions climbed faster than a squirrel in monsoon season. Viewers loved the combo, deadpan storytelling, legal clarity, and the occasional cameo by Duke snoring in the background. I kept it going. Weekly uploads, stories from people who pushed back, some with lawyers, others with lawn chairs and laminated signs of their own. It became a digital campfire where folks could say, "Yeah, that happened to me too," and then laugh about it with strangers from 10 states away. It was therapy, wrapped in sarcasm, topped with the satisfying thunk of poetic justice. Somewhere around episode 6, someone mailed me a ceramic mug. No note, just 3 words, printed in block font, "Not today, Karen." I use it every Tuesday. These days, things are quieter, not just on the land, but in me. No late night alerts, no forged documents, no HOA president screaming about frogs or flipping through fake bylaws like suburban sorcerers. Just sunlight, dust, alfalfa fields swaying. Sometimes I catch myself standing still, holding a shovel or a brush, and realizing this is what I fought for. Not revenge, not drama, just stillness. One morning, I poured coffee into the "Not Today, Karen" mug and sat on the porch swing. Duke was at my feet. Bandit lay sprawled like a rug. In the distance, 2 horses grazed peacefully near the paddock. The plaque glinted just enough in the sun. "This water is mine," not loud, not angry, just true. And out there beyond the fences, the world moved on. No hoses, no clipboards, just the sound of hooves in the grass and the gentle whisper of a man who finally got his ranch and his peace back. Sometimes defending your boundaries doesn't mean shouting louder. It means standing firmer, digging deeper, and yes, occasionally installing a motion-activated sprinkler. What started as a battle over water turned into a reminder that your property, your peace, and your name are worth protecting. You don't need to match chaos with chaos. Sometimes the best revenge is patience, a paper trail, and a well-placed brick. And if you've ever dealt with a fake HOA, an entitled neighbor, or someone who thinks your land is their playground, just know you're not alone. Your story matters, your rights matter, and your sanity is worth more than their clipboard. If you got a laugh, a chill, or a little inspiration from this wild ride, drop a comment, share your story, and don't forget to hit that like button. Because in a world full of Karens, be a Brandon. Or at least be the guy with the camera and the coffee mug that says, "Not today."